I'm Ivan Nabi, and I'm nobody. This is another episode of Ivan Reacts, the series where I, clear off the cuff, react to stuff. I know, very complex idea. Today I'm going to give you my first reactions to the Doom Patrol series available on the DC Universe streaming site. I'll talk about a little bit about the site itself at the end, but let's focus up on the show. And just start things off, spoilers ahead. Alright, so the series starts with narration. Yes, usually that's a sin, but this is a character. We're hearing the voice of the main villain, Mr. Nobody, played by Andy Sudeikis. I'm gonna butcher his last name if I try. Let's just call him Andy. He plays Wash on Firefly. He plays King River and Ludo on Star vs. the Force of Evil. He played that robot in that Star Wars movie about being rogues and that I never saw. So, honestly, he's a very talented actor. He can really bring characters to life. And, honestly, he is my favorite thing about this series. The way he hams up Mr. Nobody, the drama, the gravitas that he puts into this over-the-top character, it's delightful and hands down my favorite thing about the series. So, we see his origin. Because, yeah, you want to know origin. But let's skip that for right now. As we go on to the series, we see a race car driver played by Brendan Fraser. If you have kids, do not let them watch this series because, yeah, we pretty much see him doing the nanny. Like, they don't hide much. And, yeah, so he's a cheater. That's how we start the series. He's a race car driver and he's in a car accident. We see glimpses of things afterwards. Niles Calder, I'll get to him in a minute, and other characters. What we start to realize is that's what he's seen. And at the end, when Niles tells him what's happened, we find out he died. Well, for all intents and purposes. But his brain lived. Niles, to save him, put his brain in a robot body. Which I'm gonna, kind of a ripoff, but we'll get to it right now. You see, Niles Calder is a scientist, and he tried to save Cliff here, but the only thing that survived was the brain, so he put it in a robot, because that's what you just do. Obviously, Cliff has an emotional moment about this. He gets very upset, and he finds out it's been years since the accident. He's barely just woken up. Meaning that, yeah, his family moved on already. As we later find out, his wife is dead. His daughter's been adopted. And the first episode has a lot of him just trying to get used to everything. Just the fact that he can't feel anything in his body anymore. The fact that the world's changed around him. The fact that he's barely starting to learn to walk again. But the thing that motivates him is a memory of his daughter. That helps him learn to walk. And flash forward. We go years later where we see Jane, Crazy Jane, another person with powers. She's kind of psychotic, multiple personalities, and each personality seems to have its own power. I should also mention there's other characters already in the house, the Doom Mansion as they call it. Larry, an ex-test pilot, who's wrapped up in bandages because a negative spirit is inside of him, and I mean literal energy being. Rita, a former starlet from the golden age of Hollywood, who kind of blobs out. Turns mush, stretchy, it's all sorts of weird body horror. Alright, so we find out what's the pattern here. Weirdos and freaks come to this Doom Patrol mansion and they try to rehabilitate. Most find it impossible to live on the outside world, but they manage, they form their own clique, they're there. But they stay to themselves. Niles has to go, and we see why. When they go into town to have a little fun, nothing to cause trouble, just have fun, they cause a hell of a lot of trouble. It gets on the news. Niles is upset because now his enemies know where they are. Cue Mr. Nobody and a goat. There is really no coming back from me just saying, and a goat. Anyway, the town gets sucked up in a black hole and Niles is taken. The team are joined by Cyborg, Booyah indeed. He's trying to be an actual hero, trying to make something of his life. He goes there because he knows Niles and finds out his town is gone, so he tries to help them. They they do manage to get the town back by going inside the goat, which, trust me, it's very weird, and they make their first contact with Mr. Nobody. He's the narrator. He's literally rewriting their story as he speaks. He's bordering reality warping. And he kicks their tuchus. He messes with their minds. He pulls out the most heart-wrenching stuff in them and throws it in their face. Which is very effective because all the Doom Patrol is pretty broken in one way or another. Now, that makes the crux of the story, the season's arc, to find and retrieve Niles. There's a few other stuff in the middle. There's the Recreator, an ancient magical evil cult, brings out a huge eye that starts destroying the world. The Doom Patrol just happen to be there when a guy comes to get Niles' help. Niles is in there, so they're stuck helping him. There's a lot of stuff there. A kid may or may not have died. They fight magic creatures. They learn a little bit about themselves. And kind of create their own cult. So, yeah, that was weird. In the end, we're speeding through. This is a whole season. I'm not just going to give you play-by-play every episode. At the end, Mr. Nobody, them trying to find Mr. Nobody, they find allies and try to find them, try to make themselves better, trying to be actual heroes to save Niles. We learn a little bit of Niles. He was a part of this department, which turns out has been messing with metas, anything weird, really. And it got worse over time. He stepped away a little, but he still had connections and everything. And this is where it gets interesting. Niles set up all the accidents that gave them their powers, that made them immortal, that made them freaks. He's pretty much stated it. It's called Project Immortus, a little nod to an immortal character the Doom Patrol fought in the comics. Niles admits he did everything. It's didn't outright state it, but Rita, she fell into a river and found something that made her blobby and immortal. They even said, hey, it looks like it's pretty much perfect. We succeeded. But Niles said they needed to continue. He's the one who set up the test flight that sent Larry into the stratosphere where he made contact with the negative spirit, where his body was horribly burned and he was connected to this strange alien force. Jane, she was already a little unhinged, but it's very clear that he set her up for something else, to set off her powers, to make her grow, to become what she is now. And he outright states that he planned Larry's accident. He feels regret, he feels remorse because of that one. Because, yeah, Larry was supposed to die, but in the accident, his wife died and their kid was orphaned. He breaks down. Heck, he's even connected to Cyborg's origin. I don't know if he set that one up, it doesn't look like it, but he told his father to choose a Cyborg to survive instead of their mother. He had a part in that after all. Mr. Nobody forces Niles to reveal this truth, destroying the team. Mr. Nobody's been playing them like puppets this whole season, trying to get them to grow, to become heroes, just to break them. And we've also seen Niles' origin. He was a part of this Department of Oddities, something that studied the weird and tried to understand it, when he fell in love with this ancient immortal cave woman. I will get back to that again. But this organization became evil over time, changed, and decided to destroy anything that was weird, or collect it, understand it, and dissect it, and use it for their own weapons and needs. Okay, eventually the team breaks up. Nobody thinks he's won. He celebrates, but finds that short lived. Because, yeah, if your entire purpose has been to destroy them, are you to do after they're destroyed? Therein comes a cockroach. Look, it's a talking cockroach. It was there in the first episode. It's never been really explained. There might be something about it in the comics. I don't know. His name is Ezekiel. He's very blasphemous, God, Old Testament talking guy. And there's a rat. That's a rat, but apparently has a concept of revenge. It screwed with Cliff for an episode. Alright, so the cockroach convinces Mr. Nobody, let's bring upon the apocalypse. That's what God wants. You are his right hand. We can do anything, blah, blah, blah. Basic evil monologue. And Mr. Nobody agrees. So, everybody starts hearing Jumbo Wumba. Props for whoever wrote the series for managing to get the rights to the songs. Good for you. Alright. So, there's a character called Danny the Street. He's a friend of the Niles. Danny the Street is a non-gendered queer living street. And honestly, a real character in the comics. In the comics, I haven't read this much about it, but basically, he's a street that is alive, that can put itself wherever it wants. It usually protects people, and in this series, it protects the outcasts and weirdos, anyone who's outside of the norm. And I have to applaud the writers. This episode became a very queer-centric episode, where it touches on the struggle of queer people, homosexuals, transvestites, transsexuals, people who don't exactly fit in. And Larry is a gay man. He's pretty open about it in the series. At least halfway through it, he comes out, and it touches upon that struggle. And I'm actually asexual, but I can't really talk from that perspective. But I thought they handled it really respectfully overall. One character accepted who they were because of that street and said, "This is who I am. This is who I am, and you can't tell me what it is." I thought that was a good message. So props on them on that. Now, the street is eventually taken. There's another hero called Flex. He gets all the residents out of the city, saves them, but Danny's trapped. Mr. Nobody trapped him in a painting, and he's been calling out and gets the team back together because, as Niles reveals, the reason he did all this, the reason they're all immortal, was because he willed it so. Because his daughter is immortal. The only thing he's ever really wanted was to help people, to help her. He just wants to live one day more than her so he can protect her. Yeah, he's done horrible, horrible things. Monstrous, really, but to protect his daughter. Jane is the first to say it. You're going to save her. Because, as she puts it, nobody saved her. She wants somebody to save this little girl. They all come together. This is the arc. This is actually a well-typed, written arc for all of them. They've all had, at the start, they were all avoiding the call to danger. Rita mostly. Cliff just doing it just because, really. But now they have their reasons. They developed. They've gotten over a lot of issues, and here they are in the very climax to save this little girl, truly solidifying themselves as true heroes. Yeah, Mr. Nobody isn't the final foe. We get into the city, into the painting, into Danny as he tries to warn them. Yeah, he kind of talks through signs and stuff. Mr. Nobody's running down the street as things explode. Something's chasing him. We see Ezekiel, now an enormous giant cockroach. Also, Mr. Admiral Whiskers, the rat, also a giant. You know, let's just pause here for a moment, because I write some weird stuff my own and myself. Yeah, I've never gotten to this level of weird. So kudos. All right, Mr. Nobody explains. Yeah, they trapped everybody on Danny and into a painting. It turns out Niles knew he couldn't protect his daughter, so he hid her on Danny. And Danny's been protecting her. But when they came for her for their last bit of revenge against Niles, she had her own power. In this case, she made the animals much more powerful, bigger, monstrous even. And Mr. Nobody couldn't match them. Not in this world. He got outclassed. So the Doom Patrol comes up with a plan to fight them. They convince Mr. Nobody to help, and alright, there's no way to sugarcoat this thing. If you don't like rats, if you don't like cockroaches, this series isn't probably for you. If you have any fear about such animals, do not watch the final, because they have to improvise a little at the end. They improvise, and Mr. Nobody has to convince the rat and the cockroach to make their plan work. Yeah, that broke me a little. Alright, so basically the plan is they create thanks to Negative Spirit, they make a portal. Thanks to Larry's own radiation, they do an atomic explosion or something, and they come out of it. They hid inside the cockroach's stomach so they can survive the radiation. Danny is mostly destroyed, but he's at a brick. He's a brick now, so I'm assuming he can grow back from that. And the team is alive. They mended fences a bit. They have Dorothy, Niles' daughter, safe. They're shrunk for some reason, except for Larry, so that's something. And we see that Mr. Nobody's finally trapped in an empty painting. It seems like he's done for now, but his entire universe was a white space. Odds are he can find his way out. Okay, so that was weird. Alright, look, I didn't get into very much into the character things, but this has been a very heavy character series. The entire season has shown all the characters grow. Watching the final episode and watching the first episode, you can definitely tell how they've changed. That's good. I love character growth. You see them deal with issues. Nobody's been messing with their minds. You see them overcome that, overcome their own dilemmas. Things that have been hinted at, shown, stated from episode 1 are pretty much dealt with by the end. So it is pretty tight written. If you like Easter eggs, there are some. They mention the Brotherhood of Evil. They show the brain's case without the brain. Yeah, it's weird villain who's a brain in a jar. Yeah. That's where I'm saying that Niles just pretty much stole the idea for Cliff. The sign's got to be based on that. And I do like one thing I like in writing is there's a saying: the comic, this story, it's always going to be somebody's first. That's true. You shouldn't make it so exclusive so new readers can't come in. But it's not the first story. This world feels lived in. That there's more happening. They make mentions to Batman, Superman, Justice League. There is a world outside the Doom Patrol here. It's old. They find out about the past Doom Patrol, earlier version, and how they got pretty much messed up by Mr. Nobody. We see how things have happened. We see consequences. We see things all around them. Powers. There's a Nazi living in South America who creates, Mr. Nobody, but also vegetable, mineral, animal man. Real character. Look it up. And yeah, after he creates him, we still see him in like news reports about trying to attack people, going to court, being shot after turning state's evidence. It is crazy. I don't think anything was left behind. It is very tight continuity wise. There's a lot of meta humor with Mr. Nobody as he's very aware this is a streaming service and that he's playing the villain. But yeah, I give them kudos for trying to do a series from one of the C-list series of DC, something less well known, something that's even in universe stated filled with freaks. I give them a lot of props for that. The thing is, I didn't find that all that engaging. Overall, I give the series a C plus. Something fell down there. Overall, I give the series a C plus. It's mostly well done, but I found myself getting bored every once in a while. It didn't really pull me in. Andy was the main driving force of keeping me there, but he wasn't in there as much. And neither was Timothy Dalton as Niles. I'm guessing they couldn't afford them that much. It was well done, and I give them props for trying to do a lot of stories about real issues, abuse, mental disorders, trying to become a father, bad fathers, all these stuff. That was well done, but I just didn't enjoy myself that much. There is another issue. It might have been the service itself. I found it very glitchy. And honestly, anything I really wanted to watch on there, I have the DVDs already. For me, it's not worth the service. They do let you browse through all the comic books there for DC, but I've been really off them since the last two reboots have really drained my interest of that world. If you're interested, check it out. I don't know much about the service. Titans felt very dark from what I saw, and I was not interested in it at all, even though some of my favorite characters are in there. If you're interested in more horror stuff, there is the Swamp Thing story. And, well, it's there, but apparently reports have it's already been canceled after episode 1, so I don't know. Doom Patrol might get a second series. If this first season felt very closed, like yeah, this we can end it here. That'll be good. This is a weird ending, but this is a weird show. If they get a season 2, I might pick it up. But as my first review for this, it feels a little C plus. They did pretty good, but it wasn't all that great to me. Now, so if I'm Ivanabi. Follow me on Twitter at StorytellerNavi. All my links are down below. And thanks for watching. And I hope you have a good one. And I gotta go cancel subscription.